Welcome to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio from Boise, Idaho. This is your host, Adam Graham. If you have a comment, send it to me, box 13 at greatdetectives.net. Follow us on Twitter at Radio Detectives and become one of our friends on Facebook, facebook.com/Radio Detectives. Before we do get started, I want to remind you that we have a couple other podcasts that you may want to listen to. There's the Old Time Radio Superman show that you can listen to at laserandsword.com. And we also have our limited run series, The War. And you can listen to that at greatdetectives.net/The War. Now it's time for the final Elliot Lewis episode that we have in circulation of the casebook of Gregory Hood. There are actually 6 missing episodes between last week's show and this week's. This is the last script written by Boucher and Green, and the original air date's November 25th, 1946, and the title is The White Masters.
The Petrie Family. The family that took time to bring you good wine presents the Casebook of Gregory Hood. Tonight, Petrie Wine presents the story of The White Masters, another exciting adventure from the Casebook of Gregory Hood. And say, when your guests arrive Thursday for a big Thanksgiving dinner, why not greet them royally with a glass of Petrie California Port? Port is America's favorite wine, you know, so it's the perfect wine to express your hospitality and friendship. And believe me, when it comes to real enjoyment, there's no port like Petrie Port. It has a beautiful, deep, ruby red color. And the flavor, it's absolutely delicious. Petrie Port has such a marvelous, rich, fruity taste. It's no wonder everyone loves it. Believe me, a glass of Petrie Port is real proof that the Petrie family took time to bring you good wine. So have plenty of Petrie Port on hand for your big day Thursday. And be sure it's Petrie Port, because all Petrie wines are good wine. Well, once again, it's Monday night in San Francisco, and time for our weekly visit with Gregory Hood and his friend and attorney, Sanderson Taylor. Tonight's adventure out of the casebook begins in a small but select bar on Gary Street. The lights are discreetly low, the furnishings tasteful, and in the background, a jukebox plays an appropriate accompaniment. Just the sort of place we'd expect to find Greg and Sandy 5 o'clock after a day's work. And that's precisely where we do find them.
Oh, say, Greg, I meant to tell you, I've run into some more legal snags for that contract from Hong Kong.
You have? Too bad.
Oh, Greg, you weren't even listening to me.
Frankly, I was under the spell of that record of Art Tatum's. That left hand of his is magic. Listen to that.
Oh, yes, I'm sure it's, whatever you said. Just the same, Greg, I'd like to talk to you about the Hong Kong deal. Now, Hood & Company has a lot of money at stake.
I find it hard to concentrate on the niceties of legal problems while Mr. Tatum's beating his way out of this one. He made it.
Yeah.
Okay, Sandy, the floor is yours, but go easy with the heretofores and whereases.
Well, Greg, now here's the situation. Chong Li, our representative in Hong Kong, has worked out an exclusive deal with the importing house of Sulai.
Sulai?
Uh-huh.
Done a lot of business with them in the past. What's souring this deal?
Well, it's the problem of exchange, Greg. They want us to post dollars there pegged at a fixed exchange.
Pegging the exchange? I don't buy that.
Well, nor do I. I maintain that we do business we did in the past. Lading bills with shipments, payable in 60 days at current rate of exchange. Now, here's another angle,
I'd
Greg.
rather talk of curves. Look at this apparition that just came in.
Huh? Oh, Greg, can't I keep your mind on business for 2 consecutive minutes? Oh, say, she's coming to your table.
Mm-hmm. Good evening.
Mr. Gregory Hood?
Yes. And this is Sanderson Taylor. Do sit down, won't you, Miss... Miss...
My name is Lisa Duncan.
How are you, Miss?
How do you do?
Won't you sit down and have a drink with us? They have a wonderful sherry here.
No, thank you. I can only stay for a moment. I brought you a message.
Well, I couldn't be happier, though I don't know how you found me.
Well, that was simple. I went to your office and they told me you'd come here.
Well, how'd you recognize me then? We've never met before.
It's my business to know certain people.
Oh, this all sounds very mysterious, Miss Duncan.
And rather exciting, though I'm not quite sure which particular category of certain people I fall into. What's the message? Meet me at the fourth girder from the middle on Golden Gate Bridge at midnight and the jewels are mine?
I'm serious.
What's the message?
I bring you the message of the White Masters, Mr. Hood. Perhaps the message has already reached you. Have you heard the call to a full new life?
No, but it sounds like fun. The old life was getting a little dull around the edges, and with you as a tutor...
Don't make fun of me. This is the most important message of your life. The White Masters wish you to read this. I'll see you again, Mr. Hood.
Oh, Miss Duncan, wait a minute.
Oh, let her go, Greg, let her go. She's crazy.
Maybe, but beautiful crazy.
Walking in here, handing you a tract, and then waltzing out again.
Oh. Well, let's see what her little handbill says.
Let's see what it does. The League of White Masters. Stephen Satterthwaite to speak tonight at the Golden Bay Auditorium.
Come and learn your potential power. The propaganda line has a familiar ring. Want to go to that meeting tonight, Sandy?
Why, Gray? Just to track down your tract-leaving goddess?
Much more than that. The name Satterthwaite rings a bell somewhere. I have a hunch the White Masters aren't as spotless as they sound. Make a deal with you, Sandy.
Okay, what is it?
I'll buy another drink for you and listen to your headaches on the Hong Kong deal if, after that...
I know, Greg. After that, we go to the Golden Bay Auditorium in search of the full new life.
And what can you do to bring this power back to yourselves? Use your own power, my friends. The true powers that flow to you through the White Masters. And, my good friends, from these White Masters in the other dimension, I bring this message to you. Know your powers, the powers of light, to combat the powers of darkness, and to build a righteous, strong America.
Come on, Sandy, let's beat it.
Okay, Greg.
Was I right?
Oh, brother. Look at the eyes of all these people. Gives me the creeps. And I somehow keep feeling as though I'd seen them before.
You have. Remember in Berlin before the war?
Yeah?
Remember that rally at the Sports Palace?
The Nazis.
They're the same people. Same ones you see in this country at the rallies of homegrown fascism. The small ones. The worn-outs. The failures who need someone to blame their failure on.
Yes, the lunatic fringe.
Well, that's all we thought the Nazis once were.
It's nauseating, Greg.
Yeah. That constant and ringing repetition of the word white. It sounds noble and harmless, but the implication is dangerous.
Free speech. Yet if anyone had got up and thrown a few questions back at him...
Sure. The goon squad would have beaten him up and thrown him out of here in no time. Well, you have to see the strong-armed boys lined around the walls here, watching every exit and entrance. The one ahead of us is a prize specimen. Schickelgruber should have lived to see this.
What's the matter, buddy? Didn't you like it?
No, buddy, I didn't. You want to make something out of it?
No, not this time. Just wanted to remember your face. That's all, buddy.
Take a good look. You'll see it again.
Sure. Too bad if someone was to push it around a little.
Nice guy. Oh, say, look, Ray. There's the girl we saw in the bar this evening.
Yeah. The call to the full new life, swastikas with lace trimming. Good evening, Miss Duncan.
Mr. Hood, I'm so glad you came. But why are you leaving now? The meeting's not half over.
It's over, as far as we're concerned.
You don't agree with our belief?
That's a monumental understatement. I'm very happy I came, my fair white messenger. You've given me a job to do. You're unusually silent, Sandy.
I was thinking about that meeting tonight, Greg, and getting madder and madder.
So was I.
Why are we going to Berkeley?
We're going to see a friend of mine who knows plenty about homegrown rackets such as the White Masters.
Huh? Who is your friend?
Professor Gordon Lewis, late of Benton University.
Professor Lewis. Oh, yes, I read about him. Wasn't he fired recently?
After some rather dubious maneuverings of campus politics, I'm told. Just the same, Professor Lewis is a great scholar. Knows everything about cults from Damballa, the god of voodoo, to Shambhala, the hidden retreat in Tibet, which some people call Shangri-La.
But surely Satterthwaite's speech tonight wasn't as profound as all that.
No, but the basic roots that motivated are plenty old. I'll bet you that when I tell Professor Lewis the gist of tonight's little spiel, he'll be able to analyze it for us, show us its true origin, perhaps give us a clue to Mr. Satterthwaite. If we can get at his roots, maybe we can chop him down. And that's why we've come to you, Professor Lewis.
Well, gentlemen, I shall do everything in my power to help you. Well, Greg tells me you know more about these things than any other man in the country.
Mr. Hood is kind. More so than some I could name. All of my life I've devoted to this study. And now at my age, to be a man without a profession, without even a job. But how can I help you, gentlemen?
Well, you see, sir, it seemed to me that behind those cleverly phrased jingles Satterthwaite was echoing tonight lies a pattern. A philosophy developed from some earlier cult that's proved successful.
You're right, Mr. Hood, and I've studied them all. I've investigated every odd cult that I've come in touch with, and joined most of them. Under assumed names, of course.
I see. To study their inner workings, I suppose, Professor?
Yes, Mr. Taylor, and I've taken a certain perverse pleasure when joining a new cult by adopting the name of a god that had been prominently mentioned in some other cult, long since disbanded.
What do you think about the slant of Satterthwaite and his white masters dogma?
I think you were quite right in your own analysis, my boy. Its obvious trend is antisocial.
And you think it's more than an organized rap?
Oh, Mr. Taylor, as to its elements, the concept of divine figures acting through human agents, oh, of course, that's an old theory. Satterthwaite sounds as if he's tied in not only with several occult systems of belief, but also several far from occult thinkers who know the valuable powers of superstition. They trade on it for their own ends. I'll check on the facts that you've given me more in detail.
Well, then you think you can find out what forces are back of this deal, Professor?
I think so. From the facts that you've given me, it shouldn't be hard to find out just who's behind this movement. Within 24 hours, I'll draw you a diagram through which you ought to be able to trace Satterthwaite right back to his slimy origin.
Well, here you are, Mr. Hood.
Thanks, driver. Been keeping you busy tonight?
Yeah, quite in the morgue.
Just about as cold. Here you are. You can keep the change.
Gee, thanks, Mr. Hood. Good night now.
Night. Who's that by the railing?
It's me. Lisa Duncan.
Another message from your white masters? I didn't know they delivered this late at night. Remarkable service.
Mr. Hood, you don't understand.
Hey, what's wrong with you?
My shoulder. I'm wounded. Somebody shot it.
Well, give me your arm.
Who?
That's it. I'll get you upstairs and into my apartment.
I came to see you
Save it,
because...
Miss Duncan. I'll get a doctor. You can tell me the story upstairs. Here we are. Hold on a minute. I'll get my key.
Be careful, Mr. Hood.
In you come. That's it. I'll switch on a light. It's my man's night off. There we are. Now, I'll get to the phone.
Gregory, behind those curtains.
A welcoming committee of 3, huh? Lisa, get help.
All right, I will.
Shall I get the girl?
Never mind. Let him have it.
No, you don't. All right, try this one on.
Grab his arms, Len.
I got him.
Get on your feet against him. Help Len. That's right.
3 white supermen, huh?
Good. I told you at the meeting tonight that you might get that pretty pussy of yours worked over a little.
How's that, Prescott? Very courageous with 2 of your goons holding me.
Shut up, do you hear?
You lousy little...
It ain't polite to answer back, buddy.
Take the flagjack to him, Joe. Let's really work on him.
Yeah, give it to me. Let's see if we can beat a little sense into
You dirty no.
Now, let's see how smart aleck you can get, Mr. Hood. Come on, guys, let's get out of here.
Greg Hood. Better get over to my apartment. Right away.
We'll continue with Gregory Hood's story in just a moment. Meanwhile, I want to remind you again of that big feast day coming up Thursday. And you know what'd make a swell dessert? Fruitcake with Petri California port. Honestly, they're wonderful together. Fruitcake is traditional for Thanksgiving, of course, and Petri port makes a wonderful companion for fruitcake. It's such a beautiful wine, a deep ruby red in color. And Petri port has a marvelous, rich, full-bodied flavor that goes perfectly with fruitcake. Honestly, Petri port is one of the most delicious wines ever poured from a bottle. Your guests will love it. And you can serve Petri port proudly, because those 5 letters, P-E-T-R-I, spell the proudest name in the long history of fine wines, Petri. And now back to the casebook of Gregory Hood and the adventure of the White Masters. 2 hours have passed, and a doctor has visited Greg's apartment and treated both Greg and Lisa. As we rejoin our story, Sandy Taylor, hastily summoned from his home in Berkeley, is talking to the girl Lisa and a much battered Gregory Hood.
Well, how are you feeling now, Greg?
Awful. How about you, Lisa?
No, I'm all right, Gregory.
Gee, it's a lucky thing you ran for the cops, Miss Duncan. They picked up one of the men anyway. They're holding him in the next room here. Want to talk to him, Greg?
You're darn right I do. First of all, I want to straighten out a few things about you, Lisa. If you're a white master, why did you get shot at? Why did you bother to go for the police?
It's very simple, Gregory. I've been investigating the organization, working on the inside.
Don't tell me you're a G1.
No. My interest in these people is purely private and personal.
Huh?
You see, 8 years ago, my father was beaten to death by a mob of hoodlums at a meeting just like the one you attended tonight.
I'm sorry, Lisa.
Oh, and so you approached Greg tonight in the hopes of intriguing his well-known curiosity?
Yes, I did. I wasn't getting far enough in my own investigation, so I decided to approach him.
Oh. Then they shot at you, Miss Duncan, because they must have figured you were on the wrong side of the fence.
Yes.
Huh?
They must have followed me here from the meeting tonight, saw that I was going to Gregory's, and tried to silence me.
Well, now that we know we're on the same side, let's have our brave friend in.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll get him, Greg.
Incidentally, Lisa, we went over to Berkeley tonight and saw Professor Lewis.
Professor Lewis. I think I've heard of him.
He's helping us put the finger on Mr. Satterwhite and his crowd.
Can he come in now, officer?
Okay, Mr. Taylor. Go on in, Lem, but no tricks.
How can I pull anything when you got the bracelets on me? We'll watch him. Come on, Lem. Here he is, Greg. I didn't do nothing. Let me alone.
Listen, Lem, you've done plenty. Well, I wish I'd felt up to seeing how you'd like to take some of the medicine you boys dished out to me a little earlier.
I didn't slug you. That was Joe. Look, Lem, I'm an attorney. They'll book you on a stiff battery charge.
But look, mister, I was just doing what I was told. I ain't one of the big boys.
Listen, my friend can probably get you off with a nominal sentence if you want to play ball, Lem. I might even decide not to prefer charges if you'll open that big mouth of yours and do a little talking.
Yeah? What's in it for me? We might persuade the police to give you a break.
But if you don't talk, we can make out a sweet case of assault with intent to kill.
That means San Quentin, and not for any one-night stand. Okay, I'll talk. What do you want to know?
Who are the big shots back of this racket of yours?
Well, Mr. Satterwhite's the only one I know. But there are some other big guys in town right now. They're holding a meeting tomorrow night.
Where will they hold the meeting?
At their hideout. It's in a flea dump hotel on Torch Street.
And the big shots are meeting there tomorrow night, you say, Lem?
Yeah. Well, that's what Joe was telling me.
I'm not in very good shape to do much clear thinking, Sandy, but one thing I do know. We've got to organize some way of listening in on that meeting tomorrow night.
And you feeling better this morning, Greg?
Sure, but that was only logical. I couldn't be feeling worse than I did last night.
Have you checked with Miss Duncan?
Yes, I called her just before I came down here. She's doing fine, just raring to listen in on that meeting tonight. How the plans coming?
Oh, fine. Well, it cost a small part of the Hood fortune to fix it. I bribed the hotel man. We've got the room next to the one the crowd have been using.
Dictaphone equipment being installed?
Mm-hmm. We're all set tonight to listen in on the meeting and get a complete record of their discussions.
That'll make pretty reading for the authorities. Hello?
Gregory Hood? This is Professor Lewis.
Hello there. How are you coming with your investigations?
I think I have some interesting data for you. Perhaps we could meet tonight and discuss the matter.
I'd like to, but it'll have to be this side of the bay. We're eavesdropping on Satterwhite's in a council meeting tonight. Join us for dinner. We'll tell you all about it.
the next 6 months.
Oh, it's horrible. Even worse than I imagined.
Yes, those carefully worked out plans for inciting race riots in West Oakland. Why, that's potential murder.
It'll be prevented as soon as we turn these dictaphone records over to the authorities. I'm getting darned worried about Professor Lewis.
Yes, so am I. He didn't show up for dinner, and we called him twice from here and got no answer. Do you suppose the goon squad have gone after him?
Could be. They went after Lisa and me. They could easily have found out that the professor was in with us, too.
Yeah. Wait a minute. I think the meeting is broken up next door. I can't hear any voices.
Perhaps we should go and search their room.
I doubt if we'd find anything except a strong smell of skunk.
Well, what are you waiting for?
Wait a minute. They haven't all gone.
What did you think?
It's Satterweight.
You haven't said a word all evening. What's the matter with you? Put up that gun. You don't think you can get control of this organization that way? Put it down!
Come on, Sandy.
Greg, Satterwaite's dying.
And his murderer got away, but we'll get him. Satterweight. I'm not saying you didn't get what you had coming to you, but tell us who did it.
Wait a minute. He's trying to talk.
Who shot you?
Erman. Shot.
He's dead, Greg.
With poetic words on his lips yet. Words that sounded like Erman's soul.
Well, at least the right guy got murdered.
I'm not sure. This was murder for power, for the right to run this filthy organization. The killer's more evil even than Satterweight was. Sandy, I want you to call Lieutenant Silvers. Lisa and I will make a fast trip across the bay to Berkeley.
Oh, you're going to call on Professor Lewis?
You bet we are. I hope we're not too late.
Oh, I'm glad you came over here, Mr. Hood. And you, Miss Dunn.
I wish we'd arrived in time to prevent the attack on you, Professor.
You say they attacked you as you were getting into your car.
Yes, it's dark in the garage. I didn't see who it was. I felt this blow on the back of my head, and the next thing I knew, I was lying beside the car. I managed to crawl into the house and telephone for a doctor, and he came and bandaged me up. Oh, but don't worry about me. Tell me more about the meeting. Satterweight is dead, you say?
Yes, but just as he died, he muttered the words, Erman's soul.
I'm glad that he died.
But his killer is still at large, Professor.
But not for long. When your dictaphone records are turned in, the whole organization will be exploded, and we'll be safe from these attacks.
Those dying words puzzle me. Tell me, can you think of anyone mixed up in these rackets who might be described as having an Erman soul?
Sounds inappropriate, doesn't it? Erman soul. Now, wait a minute. I know the man you want.
Huh?
Yes, he's been mixed up in several of these subversive groups. His name's Irving Stoll.
Irving Stoll, Erman's soul. Yes, Gregory, that might be the answer.
We can put the authorities on his track, and they'll locate him in no time.
Wait a minute. Why didn't I spot it before? That cloud on the head last night must have been stronger than I thought.
What are you talking about, Gregory?
Professor Lewis, it's suddenly all very clear to me. Miss Duncan brought me into this case, and she was attacked. I went into it, and I was attacked. I brought you in, or you've been attacked. But there were only 4 people who knew what our plans were before the attacks. Sandy, Lisa, you, and me.
Surely you're not suggesting that...
Of course not, Lisa. What do you say, Professor?
But obviously, the White Masters have more efficient spies than we imagined.
A reasonably convincing answer, Professor. If I hadn't just spotted that book on Druidism on your shelf.
You're being very cryptic, Hood. How does a book on Druids enter this discussion?
Oh, it reminded me that there's an old Druid god by the name of Irminsul. Irminsul.
That sounds exactly like Erman's soul.
And if you remember, Professor, you told Mr. Taylor and me when we called on you yesterday that it amused you to join new cults under the name of a deity.
You can't possibly be suggesting...
I'm suggesting that you joined the White Masters with the intention of studying it from the inside. Then, when you were fired from the university, you became bitter. You became violently antisocial.
Oh, you're talking rubbish.
Am I? You needed money, too, and you knew how profitable those rackets are. And who knew better than you the inner workings of them? You tried to get rid of us as soon as you knew we were working against you. And then you killed Satterweight and then staged an apparent attack against yourself as an alibi.
I can only assume, my dear boy, that the blow on your head was much more serious than was feared.
Well, I'm darn certain you didn't even get a blow on the head. Look at that bandage. I should have spotted it before. No doctor ever put on a bandage like that.
But, Greg, I don't understand.
The professor does, don't you, White Master?
You're implying that I killed Satterweight?
Sure you did. And then scrammed back here and bandaged yourself from this supposed attack that never took place.
Assuming you were right. How do you think you could ever prove it?
It wouldn't be hard. You see, the murderer never spoke up at the meeting. Satterwhite commented on that fact just before he was killed. We have a record of all the other voices except the murderer's. Why was he so silent all evening? Because he knew about the dictaphone installed in the next room, and the only person who knew that, beside the three of us who were together in one room, was you, Professor.
Well, you're more clever than I thought, Hood. But I also know your reputation about never going on. You won't be able to do much about this. Oh!
Is he dead?
No. He's not dead. Where were you hiding a gun?
I shot him through my handbag.
Where'd you learn a trick like that?
Since my father's death, I've learned to be quite handy with a revolver.
I'll say. I'm very grateful. You know, you're a remarkable girl.
You're quite a remarkable man, Gregory.
Oh. Well, when we've delivered the professor to the powers that be, let's go back to that bar where I first met you yesterday. I think we've both earned a drink and an opportunity to discuss that full new life you were talking about.
Welcome back. A surprisingly topical script for our final Elliot Lewis episode of the Casebook of Gregory Hood. And this concern about the emergence of kind of neo-fascist at home was certainly covered on many programs, most notably The Adventures of Superman, where they went in a more full-on direct attack on the Ku Klux Klan. Well, this is the last circulating episode of the Casebook of Gregory Hood, and I should say of the 6 episodes that are missing, we only have titles for 2 of them. The Confucius Didn't Say from November 4th, and the 10-Cup Mystery from November 11th of 1946. This was far from Elliot Lewis's actual last appearance. All those episodes are just missing. He had 26 more episodes during the 1946-47 season, and then in 1948, he took on the role of Gregory Hood for another 52 weeks. So all told, he appeared as Gregory Hood in 88 episodes compared to Gale Gordon's 16. But because of the ravages of time, only 4 of Elliot Lewis's episodes survive, while 10 of Gale Gordon's. And of course, there were other men to play Gregory Hood, and we'll talk a little bit about that next week as we bring you the final existing episode of the Casebook of Gregory Hood. In the meantime, please send your comments to box13@greatdetectives.net. Follow us on Twitter or Radio Detectives, and become one of our friends on Facebook. Facebook.com/Radio Detectives. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing off.
It's easy to support Murderific. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, or wherever you listen. Follow me on social media on Instagram @Murderific Podcast or Twitter @MurderificBPC. Like what you hear? Rate us 5 stars on iTunes and tell a friend.
Hello and welcome to the Murderific True Crime Podcast, featuring your host, Bernadette.
Content warning. The Murderific True Crime Podcast contains offensive language and will have information about kidnappings, torture, murder and sexual assault. It is inappropriate for children or the faint of heart.
Welcome, friends, to the Season 3 finale of Murderific True Crime Podcast, Episode 30. We've made it 30 episodes.
It's crazy.
I know. We will be taking a short hiatus until February 2020 so I can write new material and new Patreon episodes and change a few things up for Season 4. If you are a patron or want to join Murderific's Patreon, now would be a great time. because you'll still get monthly content throughout the break, so you won't go through any sort of withdrawal. And if you're like, hey, I haven't heard Murderific for a while, that would be a good time to join Patreon. And I know sometimes people think Patreon is confusing or expensive. It's neither of those things. It's literally $5 a month, not like $5 a week even. It's $5 a month, like less than a cup of coffee. You also will be helping to support my podcast.
Where are you buying coffee?
Starbucks, bro.
Oh, whoa. That's why it's, $5.
No, it's $5 everywhere. So
I get my coffee for 99 cents at the Rusty Lantern.
Ooh, I don't know what to say about that.
Yeah.
I'm going to read my patrons' names at the end of this episode, so no, I didn't forget you guys. Let's get into episode 30 today. My guest today is Casey.
Howdy, folks.
Thanks for joining me on the season 3 finale. Sources for this episode will be listed on the website. So what's been going on in your life, Casey?
Getting depressed that ice cream season is over.
Oh, yeah, it's really over.
It's Maine. It's, freezing every day now. So the ice cream connoisseur in me is getting depressed.
Seasonal depression is happening. So today was Burn Day, which sounds weird, but it's basically a day that we made up where I do whatever I want all day. Casey is not allowed to complain. He had to cook for me all day. We had to go where I wanted to go all day. He had to do chores. It's kind of like from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia where they had D-Day, but instead it was Burn Day. So today is a pretty good day for me.
No complaining. That was tough.
Yeah, you did a good job, though.
Thank you.
A Viter woman, Kamisha Block, was killed in Iraq while serving in the military.
Her family calls the events following her death a military cover-up, and they want justice.
August 2007. 2 soldiers arrived at the door of soldier Kamisha Block's family to let them know that Kamisha had been killed in Iraq by friendly fire, a single gunshot to her chest. Very devastating news for a veteran's family. But on top of this, only when they got to the funeral home did Kamisha's family notice she had a gunshot wound in her head, covered by makeup, contradicting what they had been told by the military. A 12-year battle ensued, with Kamisha's family doing everything possible to get to the truth of what happened to Kamisha Block. This is a story of a military cover-up. Who really murdered Kamisha, and why would the military cover their tracks and lie to the family?
I had the good fortune to speak to Kamisha's sister Shanta for this episode. Also Mac Matthews, James Radigan, Joel Hastings. Their words and video clips will be throughout the episode. Thank you to all of you for your time. We will begin the podcast by talking about Kamisha as a child, what she was like. Kamisha's sister Shanta explains.
Kamisha had a great childhood. She grew up in a small town in Texas. My sister was always smiling. She was always in a positive mood. If she seen other people down, she would definitely try to pick their spirit back up. I'm younger than her by 1 year. Her birthday is August the 4th. Mine's August the 17th.
Kamisha graduated in 2005. After graduation, Kamisha was working waiting tables in Texas at a Waffle House. Texas was a pro-Bush state at that time, and Kamisha was pretty gung-ho about Operation Iraqi Freedom. Kamisha wasn't making much money waitressing and decided that joining the military would be a good way to begin her career in law enforcement and see the world. Her mother, Jane, was very upset by her choice, but Kamisha said, quote, "Mom, I've got my mind made up. Somebody has to do it. Freedom doesn't come free," unquote. She was part of the military police in Seoul, and she was only 19 years old. This was her first time overseas.
Yeah, that was a huge change for her. A small town like Viter, Texas, to Seoul, Korea, which was really a big city, bright lights kind of a situation.
She returned to Texas in December of 2006 and was assigned to the 401st Military Police Battalion, 89th Military Brigade at Fort Hood, Texas.
It was there she met Paul Brandon Norris. Paul Norris was by some accounts an impressive squad leader and was looked up to in his platoon. He was very outgoing. He was also sometimes described as hot-tempered, impulsive, and dangerous. He was usually referred to as Brandon Norris, so that's how we'll address him.
I asked Shanta when she first heard of her sister and Norris's relationship.
I first heard of her and Brandon when she had got home from Korea and was stationed at Fort Hood. I was pregnant at the time, and she had came down to my baby shower, and he had brought her. But I thought it was a little weird that he never got out of the truck.
Kamisha and Brandon were both at Fort Hood. Brandon Norris was 30 years old. They met at a dance club. They talked for about 30 minutes and left together. Norris was a higher rank than Kamisha, and though he was separated from his wife, he was still married. Their relationship was against military rules because of that. They both could have been discharged or lose benefits. But despite this, the couple started a secret close relationship. They were in love. People began to notice they were together quite a bit, and not in a professional type of way. Before long, the relationship grew turbulent and explosive. One day in Texas, Brandon grabbed her by the throat and shoved her against a wall. No charges were filed, and he grew controlling and jealous.
Kamisha wanted out of the relationship, and she spoke of this to her sister Shanta.
I didn't know that there was something going on. I didn't know to the extent. My sister had called me a week prior to her being murdered and told me that nobody would help her, and she was very upset. You could hear it in her voice. She was shaking on the phone, and I told her everything would be okay because she was coming home next month. She just said, "He won't leave me alone. He won't leave me alone. And nobody will help me."
Kamisha was stationed in Iraq as a driver, a very dangerous job, and she arrived there before Brandon as he had some leadership training to do.
Yeah, that is the most dangerous job in the military during wartime. You hear it all the time, the explosive devices, the IEDs. Super dangerous.
Yeah, very scary. She's putting her life on the line. Before long, Brandon began accusing her of seeing other men because they were separated. Once he was done his leadership training and he was in Iraq, he went right back to his controlling, possessive ways with Kamisha. One day while in Iraq, witnesses saw an altercation. A male soldier helped Kamisha pick up a heavy box. He innocently brushed up against her or by her breast, and Brandon ran up to them and grabbed the man by his shirt collar and screamed at both of them. Kamisha told friends that Norris was aggressive in and out of bed. She told some of her military friends that Brandon was trying to control her. Kamisha was trying to get out of the relationship at this point, but when she was around any other man, he would yell at her and grab her physically. People did try to intervene on her behalf, but he would bring up his rank and say that he was the boss, which he was. So it really didn't matter what anyone would say to him because he outranked them.
And you know how the military is. You have to do whatever your boss says, right?
Norris was on his third deployment, and as we mentioned, was going through a divorce. He was also close to the 5th anniversary of his two sisters dying in a car accident in 2002. Brandon wasn't sleeping, was taking steroids, was losing control of Kamisha, and was very stressed and was drinking a lot. Now would be a good time to take a break to listen to a couple of promos from other amazing podcasts.
Hello everyone. Let me tell you about the Apple for the Teacher podcast. I'm Anna Thomas, a teacher and your host. So you're probably thinking it's about reading, writing and arithmetic, right? Well, think again. It's a fresh take on true crime, where you wouldn't expect to find true crime. In schools. Yes, schools. You will hear tragic stories about murder, abduction, school bus hijack, student disappearance, suicide, kidnap and ransom, a school camp tragedy, the list goes on. So if you're looking for something a little different in the true crime genre, then Apple for the Teacher is for you. So join me as I present the bad apples. But until then, remember to be a good apple.
This is Weird on the Rocks, a podcast that explores the weird, unusual, strange, and unexplained, all while getting our drink on. Join me every other Monday as I share a different cocktail and discuss true crime, paranormal stories, unexplained phenomena, conspiracy theories, and much more. Find Weird on the Rocks on social media, the website weirdontheRocks.weebly.com, and listen on all of your favorite podcast apps. And don't forget to cheers and stay weird.
Fast forward to August 17th, 2007. 2 military men showed up at the Block home in the United States. Kamisha's sister, who was 18, pulled up at the same time as she saw the car going to her home. Kamisha's dad, Jerry, and mom, Jane, and Shanta were told that Kamisha had been killed in a non-combat related incident with friendly fire. They were also told that she had a single gunshot wound to her chest. Shanta tells us a little bit about that horrible day.
I was the only person that spoke to my sister that day. I was talking to her on Yahoo Messenger, and I had bought a webcam, and that was the first day that she had ever seen my son. I put him in my lap, and she started crying, and she told me that he was really cute, and she couldn't wait to get home to see him next month. And she told me happy birthday, and I told her, well, it's not till tomorrow, but we are going to celebrate my birthday tonight with my friends, so I'm going to bring Hayden to my mother's house. And about that time, I had seen Brandon stick his face in the camera and then cut it off. Not thinking of anything, I went to my mother's house. Wasn't there maybe an hour, and I left, and I started going down the road, and I seen 2 Army guys in a vehicle, and I knew nobody else down the road was in the military. I knew what it was about. And I went all the way back to the dead end where my parents lived, and I got out of the truck. I didn't even kill it. And I walked up, and I seen the chaplain with the Bible behind his back, and I just started crying. And I said, don't tell me, just don't tell me, okay? Please don't tell me. And about that time, my mom and dad walked out on the porch, and my mom just went to screaming. And they said that she was shot once to the chest by friendly fire.
When Kamisha's body came home from Baghdad, it went to the Memorial Funeral Home in Vidor, Texas. Her mom, Jane, went to have a look at her beloved daughter. It was going to be an open casket funeral. Her mother noticed a large spot on the lower right side of her daughter's head. It looked like a bullet wound. She was totally shocked and confused as the military had said something different. August 23, 2007, a funeral was held in the small Texas town, with a funeral procession of 75 members of the Texas Patriot Guard Riders, a veteran motorcycle group. Hundreds of people in town lined the streets holding American flags. After the funeral, the family of Kamisha began trying to find out what really happened to her in Iraq. Different military police would tell them different things. They were getting the runaround, and it was very devastating for the family, who had already been through so much pain losing Kamisha. Shanta, Kamisha's sister, said, quote, "It was just lie after lie after lie," unquote. The family has done so much to get to the real story. Again, in Shanta's words.
At this point, the efforts my family has made to get the truth has been above and beyond what any family should have to go through. We have had to play our own private investigators. I have been to Congressman Babin's office. I've been to the FBI.
The family waited 6 months for a report on Kamisha's August 16th death. They were told the first report was lost.
Wow.
I can't even fathom that.
I can't either.
It was lost. It was a 1,200-page report that said that Kamisha Block was shot to death by her 30-year-old boyfriend, Staff Sergeant Paul Brandon Norris, who then killed himself after the murder. The report that the family received was heavily redacted and missing much information. There was enough information, though, that the family knew that a superior officer with whom Kamisha Block had an abusive relationship with had killed her, and also that the military came to their home and lied to them about it. Their congressman, Kevin Brady, demanded a death report and tried to pressure the Defense Department to investigate the investigation.
Which sounds ridiculous. They're investigating the first investigation. Good luck with getting the truth out of that.
Right.
After the report came in, Jane Block, Kamisha's mom, called the media to let people know what had happened to her daughter and how the military was trying to cover it up. So that's a smart choice right there, getting the media involved. Any attention to this case is a good thing. Now would be a good point in the podcast to take a break and talk about holistic hemp healing. Is your true crime podcast obsession giving you anxiety and nightmares? Are murder-centric thoughts leaving you on edge every time you're home alone? Holistic Hemp Healing's all-natural premium CBD products give me relief from my anxiety and have allowed me to sleep soundly without visions of unsolved murders waking me up hour after hour. You can try their CBD products for 20% off just being a Murderific podcast listener. They have tinctures, soaps, and edibles. www.holistichemp.life. Use promo code Murderific at checkout for 20% off all of their products. Now we will get into what really happened to Kamisha Block on August 16th, 2007. What we know is that Brandon went into the housing unit Kamisha was in. He ordered her roommate to leave, and he was wildly angry, it was said. The roommate's name was Danielle Jennings. She did leave the room, but was outside the door.
And just a quick note, the rooms that they shared were 15 by 15, almost like shipping containers.
Oh.
They were very tight. There wasn't a lot of privacy.
Kamisha again told Brandon she did not want to be in a relationship with him and that he shouldn't be there. Brandon began shooting the walls and swearing to make Danielle leave and scare her off. Danielle opened up the door and Brandon pointed the gun at her and she fled. I've read some varying reports on where the roommate was, and it has changed a little bit, but it must be hard to remember exactly what happened while you're in that moment also. So the bottom line is Brandon shot Kamisha 5 times in the shoulder, chest, and head. He then shot the gun into the right side of his own head. A fellow soldier was right on scene almost immediately, and his name was Joel Hastings. He tried to save her. She was still alive, but barely. Her pulse was weak. There was nothing he could do, and Kamisha died. Norris was also dead. Joel, interestingly, saw some preferential treatment from Brandon to Kamisha while they were in the States. He did report it to the chain of command at the time, so the uppers knew about the relationship and didn't do anything at that time. So the military knew that there was a relationship even before they went to Iraq. Kamisha's photo was put on a memorial wall at the base, and there was a service for her. And then everyone stopped talking about it.
Right, very odd. Somebody got shot, killed, and it was very dismissive the way they handled it.
Yes, for sure. A decision was made at this point for some reason to lie to the Block family about the real cause of death. Kamisha dies. Somebody made a decision to go to her family and lie. So though the family knows now who killed Kamisha, her sister Shanta feels that more people should be held accountable. The military did know about the relationship, as Norris had been counseled in July by a platoon sergeant that there was, quote, a perception that he and Kamisha were in a relationship. And instead of separating Brandon and Kamisha at this time, they instead transferred the soldier who reported it. Get that straight. Someone reported a relationship that shouldn't be happening, and that soldier got transferred.
Right.
Instead of addressing the real issue.
One of Kamisha's friends even told his Block platoon sergeant how volatile the relationship was. A report the Block family received revealed that Kamisha had been abused several times before her death, and that higher-ups knew about this and yet did nothing to stop Norris or even check his mental health. Before deploying to Iraq, Brandon had told a family member he didn't believe that he could handle another tour, so his mental health at that time was questionable.
I mean, this was his third deployment, and that's going to take a toll, for sure.
You add up all of the things that were going on. He was on steroids. He was getting no sleep at all.
Shanta Block has continued to work on her sister's case. She has spoken to about 20 soldiers who have been willing to share info on the days leading up to Kamisha's death. She has gotten information about the leadership, knowing about the inappropriate relationship, and not acting on it, to finding out also that paperwork was destroyed in the hours immediately following the murder-suicide. There was also information that Kamisha herself reported the abuse to higher up. Despite this, his superiors chose to look the other way as Brandon transferred to be closer to Kamisha in Iraq, threw fits of anger, and grew obsessive and jealous before her murder. So what is the military hiding?
In August of 2019, 12 years after Kamisha's murder, Shanta got a call from the Inspector General of the Army Investigation Command, who told her that her sister's case was being reopened. A spokesman will not say why they reopened the case. They also refused to speak on the first fabricated report to the family saying Kamisha died by friendly fire.
I asked Shanta on the progress made since the case was reopened last August.
The progress is slow. Senator Cornyn has worked on things, and Senator Ted Cruz now has it in order for me to get a hearing through SASC. SASC put me with Ted Cruz. I also sent her computer to a computer check, and things are starting to be found. I can't get into that yet because CID I haven't gave it to them yet. You know, SASC put me with Ted Cruz in order to get a hearing on the Senate Armed Service Committee. And that's where I'm at right now, waiting on Ted Cruz.
Despite the slow pace of the investigation, Shanta Block will not stop her efforts. We spoke on how to prevent things like this from happening in the future, and how to stop the military cover-up culture, a system that protects the offenders.
Take the crime out of command's hands. They're part of the problem, and they can no longer deal with crime. You put your hands on a commanding officer, you get the brig, you get court-martialed, but let the commanding officer do something, and it takes a whole act of Congress, your congressman, your senator, everybody to do something about that one person.
Shanta mentioned the Military Justice Improvement Act, which is designed to remove the reporting and prosecution of sex crimes or abuse to outside the chain of command of the military. It gives the victims a justice system that works. It seems pretty straightforward a bill, but it has been struck down more than once. I asked Shanta how she wanted her sister Kamisha to be remembered.
How do I want people to remember my sister? That she's a hero, that she went and fought for this country, and that we have to fight for her. She stood up for us, and we need to stand up for her. We need to tell Congress they need to stop this. We need a hearing. We have to hold these commanding officers accountable for their actions.
Mac Matthews, who served with Kamisha, had some words on her as well.
She was just an awesome soldier. She promised my wife to get me home safe the day we were leaving. And it seems kind of dorky or whatever, but not too long after she passed away, there was a white dove that would hang around our little trailers that we were staying in. And I always just thought that was weird. But I like envisioned her, that's her now. And she's watching over us. So I don't know. That's the one thing that always stands out in my mind.
I really wanted to touch on the history of military covering up abuse or rape or sexual abuse and even murder. The threat is very real to women in the military. There are many examples of women who have been raped and murdered and having it being reported as, quote, suicide. Like the case of Lavina Johnson, a 19-year-old who was found dead on a military base in Iraq in 2005. The military said that she died by suicide from an M16 shot. I want to give a trigger warning here. There are brutal details coming up. Lavina's family said that she was not upset or depressed and that she was a very happy person. Her family had to fight to get the photographs the Army had taken that day. And when they did, they discovered that Lavina had been hit in the face by a blunt instrument. Her teeth had been knocked backwards and her nose was broken. She had bruises, teeth imprints, and scratches on the upper part of her body. Her elbow was distended. She had debris on the back of her clothes, meaning she had been dragged by someone. The right side of her back and her right hand are burned. The photos showed her genital area had massive cuts and bruising. A corrosive liquid had been poured into her genital area, obviously to